Hey, welcome to the channel. I'm the bald bearded bicyclist. You may or may not know that, even having seen some of my last videos, because I've done an absolute shit job at introducing myself. I'm trying to work on that. Today we're going to be talking about cycling nutrition. There's a lot of options when it comes to cycling nutrition. I'm going to tell you about some that are cheaper and some that you can make yourself. Okay, let's get into it. So first off, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just gonna let you know what products work for me, how I've gone about nutrition. You should really look into the science of carbs and why that's important for high intensity exercise. When I first started, I came to cycling from a weight loss background, and so I made some big mistakes not fueling my rides. I paid for it. I was at that time wasn't even doing long rides, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, but I would go out and I would hammer it. For how weak I was at that time, I was hammering it. But I'd get home, I'd take a shower, and I'd feel like I was going to pass out. And I'd get super lightheaded, and a couple of times, I just felt so sick to my stomach. I remember laying on the ground, putting my feet up so I didn't pass out. And so please don't make the same mistakes I did. Like I said, look into fueling your rides and carbs. General rule for high intensity workouts is 60 to 90 grams at the minimum. You can push that after you train your gut to 120 grams. This is of carbs, not grams of food. It's just you need to actually look at the carbs and count that out. If it's endurance work, you might be able to get away with 30 grams an hour, but it depends on how long it is. Even on your endurance workouts, you really should be fueling. Think about fueling for the next ride or the next day. Oftentimes I have an endurance ride in between, maybe more intense rides or longer days. And you don't want to short yourself going into the next day, which might be a higher intensity ride. You want to have high carbs, high glycogen stores in your muscles. Even if you're trying to lose weight, there's better times to maybe cut down on what you're taking in. But you really have to fuel during the workout, and you really should fuel really well right before the workout. I'm going to do probably another video at some point on how I've lost weight. At this point, I've lost 90 pounds all through cycling. And I can kind of get into, where you might want to cut those calories and how to go about it so you're still nailing your workouts. But for today, we'll really just stick to the actual products that I'm using, how you can maybe save yourself some money by making them yourself, or just using cheaper alternatives to the big brand stuff. Okay, so when I really first started riding, I was using a lot of products. Once I started fueling correctly, I was using Scratch, which is great, tastes fantastic. I was using Flow formulas. I really like that as well. There's a couple of positives and negatives to a lot of those different brands out there. I use Science and Sport. So kind of going one by one a little bit. Scratch, I love the taste. I liked that it was, nothing funky in there. They do good ingredients, and it just seems cleaner. What I didn't like about it was, first of all these, the cost just adds up. I mean, if you're doing multiple scoops for every workout, as the volume increases, your cost is going to go up exponentially. The other thing with Scratch is their base. If you're trying to get 90 grams of carbs into a bottle, it's going to taste like syrup. It's just too sweet and too thick. They have the super fuel, I think it's called. And that one is good, except you're using 7 scoops to get where they're saying, I think it's like 400 calories and around that 90 carbs per hour. And that I feel like just doesn't dissolve very well. You have to pretty much make it overnight the night before and let it dissolve. And that product ends up, like, if your bottle leaks at all, it will get all over your bike no matter, what product you're using. But that leaves this weird flaky residue, and it's super, super sticky if it gets on anything. So I was kind of turned off by that. Also, it's really expensive, and say you're only using those for race days, you're still going to go through bags pretty quick. So then there's Flow formulas, which I really liked. It dissolved much better than the scratch stuff. It was easier to put 90 grams in a bottle. Tastes great. It wasn't too sweet. It didn't have that syrupy thing that the normal scratch had if you're putting a lot in your bottle. But what I didn't like was the price. You can get some good discounts, but it's often for your first purchase. So I bought like a ton of bags, my first purchase. And then I actually used a second email address and bought another number of bags. But that only still lasted me a season. And after that, I just didn't want to pay full price. Science and Sport, it kind of gave me some digestive issues. I don't know why, but they use normal sweeteners. They use like aspartame, I think, or maybe it's one of the other ones, but it just seems silly to me when you're trying to fuel off of sugars. Why would you use non-natural flavoring or sweetener? I think that was maybe giving me the digestive issues. Also, it tasted too citrusy for me. It just had kind of a weird, funky flavor that didn't quite agree with me. Also, again, any of these products the price is it's going to add up after a while. So I decided to start making my own mix, and I used some of those products, and looking at their ingredients and the ratios that are recommended by scientists, as well as what's on the labels of those things as to, how to make that mix. So right now I'm currently using a mix that is maltodextrin, fructose, and then it's got a mix of citric acid, which helps with the flavor. It gives it kind of a lemon lime type flavor, and it cuts down on the sweetness. And then I basically do kind of my own electrolyte mix, and that's based out of sodium citrate, magnesium, and potassium citrate. And I'm going to link to all of the actual ingredients that I use. You can buy them. I have Amazon associate links on there. So if you do buy them from Amazon and you click the links, it really helps me out. So when you're making this mix, you can really customize it the way that you need. You can change the way that the electrolytes are, depending on how much you need, how much sodium you lose. And you can check out sites like Precision Hydration and do quizzes, or Gatorade has a patch that you can put on your arm, tell you how much you're sweating, how much sodium you're actually losing. And you can fluctuate your electrolytes and sodium for your mix depending on that. Also just how hot it is in the day, how much you're actually ingesting of the mix, how long your ride is. You can change how the electrolyte mix is. There's also another mix that I haven't tried yet, but I've been hearing a lot of people doing. It's actually just granulated sugar and then a store-bought electrolyte mix. I actually use this electrolyte mix as well, just for really short, easy spins, maybe recovery rides, things like that, where I'm not even really getting a sweat on, but I want to stay hydrated. Sometimes before or after a race or ride, I'm just trying to keep hydrated, and I will put just this electrolyte mix in a bottle. So you can do that. But granulated sugar supposedly breaks down into is made of sucralose, so it breaks down evenly into a 1-to-1 ratio of glucose and fructose. So if you just count out the grams of that and then put in a scoop of electrolyte mix, then supposedly that actually is the easiest way. I don't know whether it will dissolve quite as well as the maltodextrin, and I don't know if it's going to be too sweet, things like that. But I do plan, once I'm done with my bulk order of my own current mix, I'm going to give that a try just to see if it's even cheaper and easier. The making your own mix is nice, but it is a process. It takes a while to make it. A bit of a cleanup, making sure that powder's not on the counter, so your partner doesn't get all upset with you when if they spill water and then all of a sudden everything's sticky because there was a tiny bit of powder left on the counter. So just be aware of those things. I'll give you some tips just when you're mixing. You need a scale. You need a good scale that has grams. Get yourself a nice bowl that has a little bit of a spout to it if possible. And then as a funnel, you can really just use a piece of paper and you just kind of fold it. I'll show you in the video, but kind of fold it into a funnel, and that makes it so there's actually a really, really big wide end to it. And then no matter what bowl you're using, when you pour this powder, it's not going to come right out the spout part. It's going to come out wide in the bowl. So you need a big funnel, and just using a piece of paper is the easiest way to do it. But you may also need to split up your, don't try to do all of the maltodextrin at once. It may be too heavy for your scale, and you may not have a bowl big enough. I use the old Science and Sport bucket, and the recipe that I'm going to give you, if you start with an empty bucket, it will fit in there well. But don't try to make a whole new batch when you still have half a bucket left, because it's not going to fit in there. A couple other options for nutrition. So during races, I mainly just drink from the bottle, and do 90 grams in there. If it's going to be super intense, you can push it up to 120. Like I said, you might have to train your gut to do that. But on endurance rides, I bring in all sorts of other stuff. So instead of gels, I actually like to do just maple syrup. You can get these SoftFlasks, and you can get those from thefeed.com, or you can get them from Amazon. The ones that are made by Untapped that you can get from the feed are actually really nice because they have little measuring points on them, and it shows you, they call them each taps, but it's basically an ounce of maple syrup is 27 grams of carbs. And again, maple syrup is similar to that granulated sugar, and it actually breaks down into fructose and glucose in your bloodstream. So it'll let you absorb up to 90 grams in an hour. Or so the science says. You can look that up. I have not done those tests myself, but it does work for me, and I haven't had any sort of GI distress from taking maple syrup. And I'll do that mixed with the mixes myself. So the other thing you can do is you can go to the grocery store. Instead of getting specific gummies for cycling or running, whatever, just get like a bulk pack of like Mott's fruit snacks or something like that. I get these fruit snacks for my daughter, and they work just as well. I mean, you look on the bag, and it's 20 grams of carbs, 22 grams of carbs, depending on whatever you're getting. But a little bag of those, they taste great. They're so much cheaper, and they'll fuel you just as well. Also, gummy bears, just the Haribos. You can look on there and see it's all basically the same stuff, and it's just straight carbs, sugar. So it's going to get you where you need to be for those intense workouts. Sometimes you just need a little bit more of a solid food, and for that, I like to do bars. I really will only do that on long endurance rides, group rides where the pace is a little bit slower. I'll like to take in a little bit more of solid foods. And what I'll do is on thefeed.com They have Cliff bars always for $1 a bar. You just buy the individual bars, and it's like a deal that they're running all the time now. It's actually cheaper than the box that you can get anywhere else. And you can get all sorts of different flavors and mix and match, and they just send you a box just full of these individual bars. But $1 a bar, that's a really good deal. And then they'll run deals on all sorts of other stuff. I like the Marten bars as well. They taste like a Rice Krispie treat. But I'll only buy those when they are on sale, because those do tend to be expensive if you buy them full price. So that's basically it. I mean, you can get instead of gels, maple syrup. You can make your own mixes. You can buy gummies really cheap, and the bars, just look for good deals. You can actually make your own bars as well, but that's one step I just haven't taken. I hope that everybody finds this useful. If you have any questions, or if you have other ideas or suggestions, feel free to drop a comment. Thanks for checking out the channel, and I'll see you guys out there.